With the Carolina Panthers officially making the move to Andy Dalton, consequently putting a pause to the Bryce Young era and possibly the end, Dave Canellis and the Panthers will face off against the Raiders this weekend. A team by equal measures is a team that somewhat itself is still determining what its identity is. Want to find out how the Panthers will fare? Find out next on Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Panther Nation. Thank you all for joining us a few minutes today. I am your host, Mr. CeeLo, and I just want to give a big time growl out to all of the people out there who have had to go through this tough time. And also, I know you guys are as disappointed as myself, and we're looking for some type of relief. But unfortunately, if you guys watched my show that I uploaded last night, I hope you guys totally understand what I'm referring to when I say that this is not a fix. It's not a fix. But a lot of you took to social media. There's a lot of feedback that I've been getting, and I want to say that I'm grateful. But there are some of you that I've told you many a times, this is all about conversation. That's what this show is about. I'm grateful for the feedback, but a lot of you guys just make statements and you don't put anything with it. You have no substance by what you do. This is why I do this show. But I will take the best and I will read them on the show. As I said, you guys, I am all about people being able to get their thoughts out there. That is what this show is about. That is what I created this show for. And ultimately, when good things start to happen and we start to grow and our family starts to grow and we get noticed, ladies and gents, that's when great things are going to be put out there. I've got a lot of them I've got to go through, but I'm grateful for that because you guys are responding. And that is ultimately what my goal was when I started this show. And I am just absolutely ecstatic at all of the love that I'm getting. I'm going to read a few negative ones. I'm going to read a couple of positive ones. This one comes from Carolina all of these are Facebook groups, by the way. Carolina Panther Fans for Life. Over 7,000 members in this group. I got 2 angry responses and I got 12 thumbs up. Mark says 100% he will be awesome on his next team. Maybe the Raiders. I don't know if it's going to be the Raiders. I think, let me say this right now. The problem when you draft a small quarterback, you have to have items in place then. I don't have any problem with what I thought Bryce Young's biggest problem is his confidence is shot. He's having to go and change and become something totally different than what he was at Alabama. The thing is this is where David Tepper should have looked at himself and said, okay, Frank Wright was right about one thing. When you get a small quarterback, the rules don't apply to a guy that can see over his line or a guy that you have to create passing lanes for. Or when you get a guy like a Devontae Smith or Jameson Williams, John Mechie III that can get 5 yards of separation from everyone. And this is no knock on Bryce Young's accuracy. The thing is, these guys can get open. We don't have a guy like that, and we don't even have schemes that are that good. Another thing you guys need to realize is C.J. Stroud has a lot of plays that Bobby Slowick took from his Ohio State playbook. I don't see a lot of plays from Bryce Young's Alabama playbook. Do you? See, when you draft a quarterback, you also got to take into account there needs to be some things that this guy retains that he's been playing with for the last 3 to 4 years that he's comfortable with. You can't just sit here and say, this is my style, you're going to play it my way. You have to cater to your quarterback. Otherwise, where would Lamar Jackson be if he had to cater to some of the styles in the NFL? I rest my case. John said Bryce had a good part of his failure. How, John? How? And see, when you make those kind of asinine statements, the problem I have with this is you have to back up what you're saying. Tell me how Bryce was a big part in what he had and what happened to him. I want to know. So somebody leave a comment down at the end of this show because I want to know. Do I agree that Bryce made some mistakes as far as reading blitzes and understanding hot reads? Yeah, but there's also a point where the coach has to say that to you too. And the style that you play or the type of system that you're running or the coach has you running, that plays in a part. So you can sit there and you can make this statement, but you got guys like Frank Wright that were around for a long time. Guys like Scott Fitter that were around a long time. Dave Tepper hadn't been around. His money was the problem. And we've seen this since day one. He can't sit his butt down and stay out of Panther football business. Just run the financial side of it. Leave the football business alone. So, John, I ask you, explain. Then Megan said, Young leave. I got a problem with that statement too. Please use complete sentences. You don't want him. Ricky had a great point, and I'm going to call out this gentleman's name because he's agreed with exactly what I said. He said Frank had a plan, and it was CJ. Yeah. I think it was pretty obvious. And the horrible aspect of that is I honestly think Frank, not necessarily, I would have to hear it from his mouth, but in my opinion, I believe he gave up. As soon as they drafted Bryce Young, he threw his hands up and basically was like, I can't do anything with this. I honestly think that Carolina was a year too late. And I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear this. We would have been better off getting Sean Payton. Sean Payton knew what he needed to do with Drew Brees, and he did a pretty good job with Russell Wilson. Whether any people want to get, Russ was 27-5 last year, which means 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Not bad. He just was not what Sean Payton wanted. I think there was problems in that relationship, and it just didn't go the way they wanted. Moving on. Janamber, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right. I'm sorry, sir. Young is a champion. Panthers have no O-line, no coaching, no one that can catch the ball. Look at the whole picture. In Indy, we have Anthony Richardson. I'd trade 20 Richardsons for Bryce. This coming from a guy who is a Indianapolis Colts fan. Now, I will disagree with you on the fact that we don't have... Now, our O-line was beaten up last year. That is what many forget. Corbett and Christensen were out most of the year. Christian was... Yeah, he played one game. That was a wrap. Corbett took anywhere from the 5th or 6th game, and he was finally back. We had inconsistency at the guard position all year. And it got Bryce killed. Absolutely killed. And if anything, last year he should have sat. He should have sat last year, period. Plain and simple. Then John got a bunch of replies saying, you haven't been watching any games at all. I agree somewhat. It's not that our receivers couldn't catch the ball. DJ Shark was an underappreciated player on this team. He had some really good moments. And probably the one that he'll be remembered most is that dive to the end zone where Winfield knocks the ball out of his hand. And it was just the epitome of where the Panthers are going and where we are now. We just, when you try to make big plays, it turns into bad plays. Kevin responded, O-line's not a problem at all. It's ranked 5th in the league, so please elaborate. Kevin, I think what he's referring to is last year. And our offensive line has not been good opening up holes. Now, that's partially because we can't get 7 guys out of the box. That's part of the problem. But see, some of that scheming, Jonathan, Kevin, that's scheming. You cannot have, and I'm not seeing anything from Dave Canellis that I didn't see last year. I'm seeing blind play calling. And it's getting old. You have, and I'm telling you guys, watch the play calls tomorrow and see what kind of routes we're running, what kind of misdirection we're running. There's going to be an issue here. Because if Bryce Young is as cerebral as they called him at the beginning of the draft last year, which I'm going to get to a comment that someone said Steve Smith said it was the right thing. Well, Steve Smith also endorsed him. He was I've got it on video. Steve Smith endorsed Bryce Young. He didn't even walk back his comments, if that's what this guy said. I want to hear Steve Smith walk this back. I'm going to see if I can't find it. But if you're going to say sit this guy or even move on from him, you co-sign, just like you co-signed with Mingo. Now, I get it. You can make mistakes, but here's the thing. Your credibility is shot when it comes to talent, bro. Unless you're going to hold the organization accountable. It ain't all just the players failing, guys. It's not all just the players. So the O-line might be ranked 5th, but it doesn't translate well on the offensive side. Now, Chuba Hubbard's run the ball well. And it could be a situation where we do need to wait on Brooks. Maybe Brooks will open it up. I think he could be. But I'm of the essence of Braylon Allen. And if any of you guys heard me talk, I was big when we got Brooks and Braylon Allen went in the 4th round. I told you guys. I mean, listen. I may have been on my other show, the Gridiron Guy Pro Style, but I loved Braylon Allen. Everybody's gonna say that was a steal in the draft. I knew he was a steal in the draft, you guys. We went out and got Brooks, and now Braylon Allen, a guy who was 3rd or 4th on the Jets depth chart, all of a sudden has shot up the depth chart because they realized, like I told you guys, he was Derrick Henry 2.0. And he should have been in our stable. I think he's 6'2", 235 pounds. He's not quite as fast as Derrick Henry, but he's just as powerful. Ask the New England Patriots. James said, never seen such a player where is everyone else's fault. So in 19 regular season games, the 52 other players let the team down, not Bryce, of course. Organization let the fan base down by the other decisions. He is a champion in the loaded SEC where his football career ended at Alabama. Okay, James, the context of what you're saying is the only thing we can blame Bryce Young for is not going to the organization and saying that I need this. He's a mild-mannered young man. The reality of it is we do have some weapons around him. We do have a decent offensive line. We have a decent play caller. That's not good enough when you're the number 1 pick. We look at certain players. Joe Burrow looked decent his first year without Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins was hardly featured that year. Mahomes sat. The reality of it is you have to know your quarterback. And too many people on this whole issue are saying that they think they understand Bryce Young and they don't. C.J. Stroud came out because the Houston Texans knew what they were getting. And Bobby Slowick has done a great job saying, okay, I'm going to go with what C.J. Stroud does best. That's like saying I'm going to put a bass in the ocean and hope he figures out how to swim or if he can make it in it. You can't do the exact opposite of what got this guy drafted. Look at the tape at Alabama and you say, okay, let's put in some of the things that he did at Alabama. I haven't seen those yet. Alabama ran the football and threw it down the field. He threw it down the field. You're sitting here creating short stuff in a congested area, which he's having trouble seeing in. Here's the reality. If Bryce does not have to look short and look over the line, guess what? He doesn't have to stand on his tiptoes. He can drop further back in the pocket, step up in the pocket, and throw it down the field. But unfortunately, when you only have zero and possibly one route of 15 yards, Dave Canellis, that ain't going to look good. Matter of fact, Bryce looked better last year, early stages. A lot of people forget Adam Thielen caught 100 balls last year. He caught 100 passes, and a lot of those weren't just short passes. There were passes that were down the field. These crossers going across the middle of the field on into what they call the corner. The same type of route that C.J. Stroud loves to throw to Tank Dell. We don't see those because you're worried. If this offensive line was performing as well as they said it was, how come all of the routes are short concepts? Anywhere from 10 yards or less concepts. That's not where your quarterback makes his money. He makes his money getting the deep stuff or the intermediate stuff. And this is why I say we can't keep blaming Bryce. Danny said, Young failed the Panthers. He sucked. We should have took Strauss. Well, first of all, you got to spell Stroud. I said it then. I'll say it now. It's too short. I'll say it now. It's too short. Wheat farm and a little bit of brains. Okay. First of all, Danny, look, I appreciate you commenting on the show, but the reality of it is, listen, get the name right. It's C.J. Stroud. Okay, and I said the same thing. You guys go back to my very first show that I did. Which of the quad QBs will the Panthers take? You guys know I was all on C.J. Stroud. But I said I'm going to support Bryce Young, and I'm still going to stick by that to this day. We're heavily invested in this kid. And it doesn't make sense, you guys, to sit there and say dumb stuff like that. Because if we don't invest in Bryce, guess what? We're 5 years behind. Think about it. The first year we gave away DJ Moore. That's a year number one pick. That's a first round pick that we gave up that year. The first round pick we gave up last year. And then we're giving up a second round pick that year. That's 4. Plus the year of development. That's another year. We're a laughing stock right now because of it. It's not just because of Bryce Young. That was a good group. Carolina Panther fans for life. Guys, if you're not part of that group, go ahead and join it. It's a very good group. A lot of great dialogue in that group. I really appreciate it. Let's go over to real Carolina Panther fans. As Justin said, listen, we did fail him last year, but it's lazy to say that for this season. It's not lazy, Justin, and I'll tell you why. You had to understand practice makes perfect. And for Dave Canellis to sit up there and honestly say to himself, and I heard many of you Panther fans say, I don't want to get him hurt before the season. What better way than to build his confidence than to get him out there with a bunch of, as Mel Kiper said, nobodies. You build confidence, and then guess what? When he goes up and he's let's put it like this. Why do you think your first shot outside of Creed, Creed 3, you don't see that often. Outside of Creed, you don't see guys whose first, second, or third fight is with the heavyweight champion of the world. You keep seeing this guy because he's worked his way up. He's won fights, big fights. He continues to win until he proves himself worthy. And that's where that confidence is built. Torian said, find time to fix it now. Fix what? See, I need more context. I need more context. What are we fixing? What are we fixing? Because ultimately, if you pull Bryce and let's say you go 9-8, shades of Steve Wilkes now, and then you ain't willing to go back to Bryce, what are you going to do? You going to start Andy next year? Because we're not going to get a good enough pick to take Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, or the kid out of Georgia, Carson Beck. Not going to get those guys. You ain't that up. Them guys will be gone with the first 3 or 4 picks. And I know what people are going to say. Who on these quarterbacks? Trust me, the Giants are getting a quarterback. Jets are going to get a quarterback. And a lot of people are going to say, well, they will be picking before the Jets. Yeah, it's possible. You never know. Kyler Murray might have another setback. They may deal him. There's always the possibility somebody else could come up above us and not have a great season and then draft a quarterback. Raiders need one. They're not going to stick with Gardner Minshew. You know that. And that's who we got this week. Doris said Bryce Young failed himself, not fit for the job. Okay, but I have to ask this, Doris. And Deontay G said Bryce failed himself, and people are saying he failed himself. Explain. How can you fail yourself when you've had 3 coaches in 2 years? 2 coordinators, 2 years. And this year's defense can't stop wet toilet paper, can't stop the run to save their life. And our best defensive player arguably is on IR. We just put $150 million, to me, overpaid 2 guards whom, in my opinion, only move decently to run the ball. And until I see otherwise, I will call it that. Right now, I'm blaming it and play calling. Dave Canellis doesn't have enough creativity in the run game, and it's the same thing over in Tampa right now. No creativity in the run game. And he said he was going to run the ball. We have yet to have a game where we ran the ball more than we passed it. If you got a quarterback that you know is struggling, you have to be a creative play caller. I don't see that. I see a guy that's trying to make it work. And it's not working. And I don't like the fact that there's a lot of Panther fans that think this is funny. This is not funny, guys. I mean, the reality of it is we're heavily invested in the Bryce Young, and a lot of you are saying to just kill it. You know, that's not the way we need to do it. Larry said Scott Fitterer, Dan Morgan, Frank Wright, along with Dave Tepper were the main culprits and failed miserably. Agreed. Well, I'm actually backing off my stance a little bit, Larry, when it comes to one Frank Wright, because this wasn't his choice. I mean, I would like for him to just come out and say that, and then that would explain why his lack of, I guess, enthusiasm and coaching. Because it looked many times like he was not enthused to be there. It looked more along the lines of, this ain't my guy. It don't bother me none. I'm going to get paid regardless. That was kind of the vibe I got in a lot of situations when I saw Frank Wright. I'm not saying that's what it was. It would be great to hear his opinion on it. And Wendy says, and we're still stuck with Morgan and Tepper. Well, the reason why I blame Morgan more than anything else is because he chose Dave Canellis. And like I said, people are saying Dave Canellis ain't the problem. But the problem I have with Dave Canellis is I'm seeing it for what it is. We don't have a Mike Evans. And this is what I didn't understand about when he asked him to be the quarterback whisperer, if you will. You don't have a Mike Evans. Mike Evans can arguably beat any corner in this game. Any corner. But when you think about the success Sam Darnold is having in Minnesota right now, it's because of Justin Jefferson. And there's some great play calling. They're opening up the offense. I get it. And most people don't recall. Sam Darnold had some successful moments as a Carolina Panther, but David Tepper wants a home run guy. He wants his Joe Burrow, his Patrick Mahomes. And the reality of it is, when did we stop remembering what our mantra was? Keep pounding. You don't need an elite quarterback. I mean, honestly, I'm not a fan of Anthony Richardson, but if, for goodness sakes, if we're going to keep our mantra, or we're going to deviate from our mantra, at least get a guy that we knew was going to be the standard. That was what I was hoping with Bryce Young. We were going to get C.J. Stroud. If nothing else, he's going to be a guy that doesn't come with a whole bunch of difficulty. Now, am I saying that to say I'm done with Bryce Young? Absolutely not. And I don't think none of you should be done with him. I think he's going to sit behind there. He's going to watch Andy, and he's going to learn some things. Now, the question is Dave Canellis going to understand that Andy Dalton is not Bryce Young? Since I'm an Ohio State fan, I was truly pulling for us to draft C.J. Stroud. I'm with you, Will. Over Bryce. Most analysts had Bryce as the most pro-ready QB, but his size bothered me. I agree with that. With that said, there were a calamity of errors made to get where the team is today. Oh, I think I'm liking this, Will. So I believe Canellis is doing the best thing for the team and actually for Bryce. I believe him sitting and truly learning the system and how to read NFL defenses better and quicker will help to calm the nerves and allow him to regain his mojo. At least I hope so. This is probably the best comment I have heard encouraging. Will, you have become the growling and prowling fan response of the week. Absolutely, William. I am very pleased about this comment. Thank you so much. It is a great comment. The thing is, I'm 100% on board with that. You have to know what you're drafting. And when you played last year, this is where Frank failed. He played him in preseason, and honestly, there was nothing you could tell because the offense was so blonde. I mean, blonde, a negative blonde. And there was nothing to go on. Nothing. But let's move on. I'm running a little long on this today. John said the fail was on Fitterer by drafting Bryce at all. Always should have been Stroud. I'm going to defer, but you guys refer to my very first show. Cody, Scott, not Dan. Dan got hired recently. Scott was bad. Agreed. Dan has been Fitterer's right-hand man for years. You can best believe Dan was an equal part of all Fitterer's terrible decisions. Dan should have been shown the door with his protege. Ooh. Harsh words, Wendy. Harsh words. I kind of agree with that because you're right. He was his understudy. But do I think he pulled the trigger on a lot of players? I don't know about that, Wendy. I'm not real sure. So I agree with about half of what you're saying, but that was a great comment, though. Wendy also commented yet again and said, the Panthers failed Bryce by drafting him. First, he was not ready to start on any NFL team. But had he gone to a team like the Bills where they could have sat and learned behind a good QB for years, he might have learned how to overcome all his shortcomings, pun intended, and found some success. But overall, number one picks are not given the luxury, and he would have face planted on any team asking him to be their starter. I don't want to say that is true, Wendy, but I think a lot of the problem is with Bryce not reading at this point is he didn't have to at Alabama. And what happens is you have to know, and I think a lot of it has to happen is what's going to need is he's going to have to be in an offense where the coaches give him the liberty to make decisions. I think what happens is he goes in and he's being this nice guy and he's not saying what he feels. I think a lot of what's going on is what's going on out there. He's not really relaying what is going on, and it's causing him a lot of problems. He has to be able to say what he's seeing out there, and Coach Canellis is going to have to give him the liberty to either change the play, move the play, because if he's the cerebral guy that we say, he should have the liberty to do so. Cam said Bryce's failure to date combined with the recent success of Tepper castoff, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield shows the problem is at the top. Cam, thank you so much, my friend. You are in competition with Wendy and William for the fan of the show. Because I agree, it did. And I'm glad you brought that up because it slipped my mind on the last show that I did. Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield's success is showing a lot. It really is. It's showing that you're picking the wrong dang coaches. And the wrong type of play callers. Listen, your quarterback is used to playing a certain style. You can't just pick a quarterback and say, oh, well, he's the number one pick. He's going to play whatever style suits me. You look at the styles that Joe Burrow plays, Patrick Mahomes plays, even C.J. Stroud. There's some sprinkling of what they did in college in there. Heck, Cincinnati went and got Jamar Chase. A guy that played with Joe Burrow, for goodness sakes. I mean, it don't get any more clear than that. Houston went out and got Tank Dell, a guy who had worked with C.J. Stroud the entire summer. They in the same class. They were drafted the same class. And see, Bryce actually had some work with Adam Thielen over the summer. See, that's got to happen. You got to have guys that are willing to come in here and get their work done. Not to mention, Xavier Legette was out and in training camp all summer. Brooks ain't been able to play at practice yet. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. Thank you, Cam. That was a beautiful, articulated point. Let's see. Those are my two groups that I am going to put out there. You guys were great. Carolina Panthers, keep pounding. And Carolina Panthers fans for life. You guys are awesome. Keep those comments coming for real. I love it. I love when you guys are out there. But like I said, you three are my fans of the show. And I'm so grateful for you guys putting in your input. It is really greatly appreciated. And that is what this is about. It is about making a conversation and understanding where we're at with this organization. And like I said, I'm not happy, just like you guys are. Wendy, William, and Cam. By the way, if you guys want to be referred to by whole names, that's great. I will put you on there, and I will give you guys a growl out. But a growl out to all my groups that commented and participated. As I said, I alluded to the Raiders earlier, but let us move on to the game at hand. Panthers versus Raiders. We got to travel to the West Coast. And Dave Cannella said at practice that the offense looked great. We've heard that before. Until it got to be game day. And then everything fell apart. But I'm going to say, the most important aspect of this game, I'm not worried about the defensive side of the ball on this one. I am, of course, because we already know Devontae Adams is going to be matched up with J.C. Horn majority of the day. But I guarantee you the Raiders are going to try their best to move him around. But we cannot let Devontae Adams beat us, because Gardner Minshew is a tad bit over average when it comes. He's 55 of 71, 533 yards, and 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So Zamir White has not been impressive running the football, which, as I said, the Raiders could very well go to trying to get him the football because the Panthers are atrocious stopping the run. But the thing that I don't understand is Cannella says it's all about trying to get continuity on offense. We don't have an identity. But look at this. Chuba Hubbard's got 16 carries, 78 yards. He's got 20 more. He's got 10 more yards rushing on 6 fewer carries than Oakland's leading rusher, Zamir White. Now, I believe what's going to happen is the Carolina Panthers are going to either get the ball first and go 3 and out. The Raiders come back down and they score first. Canellis is going to lose his mind, and he's going to start throwing the ball and playing arena football. What for? This Raiders team is a team that plays off of mistakes. They opportunistic. Just ask the Ravens. Don't allow the Raiders to dictate the pace. We need to run the football, set up some play action pass, which is what we were supposed to do with Bryce Young. The keys to this game for the offense are going to have to be, if Ekwonu is going to make his name as an elite pass blocker, he's going to have to deal with Max Crosby. Max Crosby is going to be a wrecker on this defense. I mean, there is just no way of putting it down. And then what everybody's going to have to look at is Christian Wilkins going to play? That's the big deal when you look at it. You look at he and Tyree Wilson is possibly questionable. And like I said, if Christian Wilkins doesn't play, that's a huge space in the middle of that Raiders defense. Now, this is where our guards, our highly paid guards, Hunt, can go and actually make this game a success for the Carolina Panthers. The reality of it is we got to be able to run the football. We already know Shy Tuttle is more than likely doubtful. Ashawn Robinson is questionable. And the truth of the matter is if we can contain Devontae Adams and not get him going crazy down the field, I like our chances if the Raiders don't go crazy trying to run the football. But here's the thing. Devontae Adams might be the guy, but the one guy that most people are not talking about who was huge in that game against Baltimore is Brock Bowers. This is where we're going to have all eyes on deck as far as Josie Jewell and Shaq Thompson. Now, Gardner Minshew's not a big quarterback either. That's another thing that needs to be brought up. Minshew's not a big guy either. But the reality of it is, if we can't keep our eyes on Adams, we can't let Bowers get going either. And they have Michael Mayer as well. So, ultimately, do I think the Carolina Panthers can win this game? Of course. However, the question remains, do the Oakland Raiders run the ball or do they throw it? I think it goes into our hands if they throw the ball. If they try to run it, we might have issues. Ultimately, I think this is a toss-up, but I think what happens is Andy Dalton puts a renewed push back into the Panthers, but I think with what I saw with the Raiders last week, Raiders against the Ravens, I want to go with the boys in blue, but my heart is telling me that the Raiders are going to pull this game out right there at the very end. And it's not going to be as horrible as it's been the last 2 weeks, but I think Dalton has a pretty decent game. I just think we come up just a tad bit short. But I do think that Christian Wilkins injury will loom large. If he plays, then it's going to be a Raiders victory. But I think if Wilkins doesn't play and Dave Canellis chooses to run the football, I think the Carolina Panthers control the clock and they're able to win the game. But right now, I'm going with the Raiders. I know people are going to say, well, you got 2 predictions. It all depends on Christian Wilkins. That's how big of a difference he is. But let me know what you guys think. Hit me up at Facebook at Growlin' and Prowlin'. I'm going to try to get a poll up and see what you got, engage what you guys are thinking about Bryce Young's benching. Also, go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo. Check out the other things that I'm involved in. Also, if you subscribe to the show, and if you're watching the show and you're not subscribed, you know what you need to do. Anyway, comment down there below the show when you comment. When you subscribe. And even comment what you love about the show and what you would like to see different. Don't shy away. Just don't clown. Because I had a guy that clowned me on one of the shows, and I'm done trolling people. I'm not here to troll. I'm here to make content and enjoy talking with you guys. And I'm gonna go live real soon. But until the next time, keep prowling the airwaves and keep growling out. Keep pounding.